Well, last week we talked about the word faith. And so this week, as Elizabeth said, we're going to talk about the word wait. We're going to talk about waiting. And so to be truthful, ever since I started writing this sermon on Monday evening, every day this week I have been bombarded with a daily devotionals on the concept of waiting. I have heard preacher after preacher this week talking about this concept of like waiting. So like maybe God's trying to preach to me this week on this concept of waiting. But so get your Bibles and turn to the book of Habakkuk. It's on page 685 in your pew Bibles, but most of us could probably never find that book of Habakkuk. It's one of those books that I don't think I've ever heard anybody preach out of. But it's interesting because I actually did a study through this book the last couple of weeks, and this whole book is based on the concept of waiting. But it's turn to your Bibles to the book of Habakkuk, page 685 in the pew Bibles, and let's say we'll be looking at chapter 2. And so we're only going to be reading verses 2 and verse 3, but it's chapter 2, verses 2 and 3 says, "Then the Lord answered me and said, write the vision. Thus it make it plain on tablets, that he may run who reads it. For the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it will speak, and it will not lie. Though it tarries, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry." God tells him that's like to wait for it. Our kids, Andrew and Aaron, love to watch professional wrestling. We have gone to see everything from WWE live. We have seen John Cena. We have seen all of them live numerous times. All the way down to your local high school gym, wannabe pro wrestling at Waynesboro High School. We have seen it all. We've seen the top superstars, and then we've seen 65-year-old men trying to relive their glory days. And that's in high school gyms. That's like you name it, we have seen it. But there was one time in particular, we went to John Paul Jones Arena to go see WWE live. That's at this point, we have been a couple times, so that we already knew what to expect once we got there. We already knew that the parking stinks. Everybody knows the parking stinks. You gotta park 3 miles away. And so then you have to stand outside and you gotta wait in this long line in the cold or the heat. Just waiting for them to open up the door so that you can even start to go in. Then you slowly make your way through the doors because they make you go through all these metal detectors, and they got to check your bags, and now you got to take in a clear bag, and you can only take in a certain size little hand size pocketbook that if you're a woman. And it's like finally, once you go through all this rigmarole, then you finally get your ticket scanned, and you finally get to go inside where you get to fight 20,000 other people trying to get a cup of Pepsi. But as this time was different, something different happened this time. After they scanned their tickets, the attendant told us to step off to the side for a second, that they needed to talk to us. They pulled us off to the side, and as they said, "No, just stand here." And that's like somebody's going to get with y'all in a second. So then we stood off to the side, and as we waited, and then we waited some more. And it's like the whole time, people were piling in. All these people were buying their drinks. They're buying their food. They're making their way to their seats. They're buying T-shirts. They're buying the little action figure dolls. And the whole time, we're standing there, and we're waiting some more. As it by this time, we're starting asking each other, "Hey, what's going on? Is there something wrong with our tickets? Were these tickets fake? Were these tickets fraud? Did we buy some bad tickets? I don't know. Maybe Tickets were stolen. I mean, we don't know what's going on at this point. They just told us to stand over here and wait a minute. And they finally, after patiently waiting for it, it was probably only 5 minutes, but it seemed like it was an hour. But it's after patiently standing there, and as they patiently trying to wait with 2 little small kids, somebody finally calls us up to the customer service desk. And as the attendant tells us that our tickets have been randomly selected to be upgraded to ringside seats at no charge. That night, we had a blast. We got to not just sit ringside, but we actually got to sit on the entrance ramp, right on the railing. So it was every time that a wrestler come down the ramp, we was getting high fives. They were taking selfies with the boys. And it's like one of the wrestlers even did a nice little provocative dance for Elizabeth. And we still pick on her to this day. And it's like I think that he liked her when he saw her. I think he liked her, so he did a little dance. And it's like all of this is a true story.
See what I put up with?
But the whole moral of my story this morning, the whole point that I'm actually trying to get across is that sometimes having to wait sometimes half the wait isn't all that bad. Sometimes in life good can come out of waiting. I'm still laughing. But the problem is, none of us like to wait. Not even for a hot second. We hate to wait. Just like, think about it. It used to take weeks for news to travel across the country. I have read all these stories about back when the Civil War ended. That's it. After Lee signed a treaty with Grant, there were still battles. There were still all these skirmishes that went on for months after, because the armies have not all heard that the war was over yet. It used to take weeks for news to travel across the country. We used to write letters to people as they stick stamps on them, and we used to put them in the mail, and it would take 3 days for that person to receive a letter back. Because back when Elizabeth back when she was in college, we still used to have to write letters, and it took 2, 3, 4 days for one of us to get that letter. Now we can just wake up in the morning and we can just text it. It doesn't get a matter of a few seconds. That person is already responding back to us. And it's like instead of writing letters, we can just text. It's like we no longer in today's world have to wait for anything. It's like food is even instant now. There are parts of this world where people don't have food at all, but food is even instant for us now. That if we get hungry on the way home from church, all we got to do is just go through a drive-through, and it's immediately we are handed a bag of food. And it's like the problem is the world is constantly changing. But the deal is God hasn't changed. God is still the same. God has always made his people wait. And it's unfortunately for us here this morning, he still does. God still makes us wait, which means sometimes me and you, we are going to have to wait. We are going to have to wait on God. It's like the whole book of Habakkuk is actually a dialogue between the prophet Habakkuk and God. This whole book is Habakkuk is asking God all these questions about life. It's like God is answering these questions. The whole book is the prophet asking all these questions, and God is repeatedly saying, wait, just sit back and wait. God says, I will give you the answer to your question, but it's only when the time is right. You don't hear a lot about the prophet Habakkuk. I mean, I don't think I've ever heard a sermon preached on him before. It's like his book is only 3 small, short chapters. And it's like the only time you hear about him is actually in his own book. This is the only time we hear about him ever being mentioned. But it's like he was a prophet, and it's like he was actually a prophet at the same time as being like Jeremiah, it's like Ezekiel, and it's like Daniel. That's like maybe that's why we don't know much about him, was because he was kind of living in the shadows of these great, powerful prophets, men like Ezekiel, men like Daniel. And it's like these guys stood before kings. These guys had visions, and it's like these guys kind of got all of the glory. But it's in the background was this little small prophet named Habakkuk that just happened to be very troubled by the things that he saw going on in his hometown, the things that he saw going on in the nation of Judah. Because see, at this point in the history of Judah, they have had a long line of immoral, evil kings. All their kings no longer followed Yahweh God. These kings were following Baal. These kings were following all these pagan gods, all these pagan rituals. And it's like Habakkuk gets to the point where he finally cries out to God. And it's like, says, God, how long are you going to let this keep going? How long are you going to continue this evil to keep pursuing? When are you finally going to step in and, as to say, judge us? When are you going to judge our enemies? And it's like God answers, but as God says, don't worry, because my judgment is coming, but it's not coming yet. You just sit back and wait. Just sit back, wait and watch. I am going to judge, but the time just isn't right yet. And it's like, how many of us like to be told to wait? How many of us like to ask our parents a question, and say their mom or dad says, just wait, Christmas is coming, just wait. None of us like to be told to wait. Waiting drives us crazy. And it's even harder when we feel like we are waiting on God. Those times that we feel like we are waiting on God, those times are so much more difficult. Maybe you've been praying for a lost or a troubled loved one for a long, long time, and you just don't see any change in it. You don't see any change in that person's life. Maybe you've been praying for healing for either yourself or a friend, and you don't see any change in it. It's like all it ever seems like is you're just sitting around waiting. You're just sitting around getting impatient. That is what the prophet Habakkuk is feeling in chapter 2. He is asking God, what is taking so long? Why are you taking so long? Why won't you answer me? Where are you at? Have you forgotten me? This is what he's crying out to God. Have you forgotten me? Have you forgotten your own people, Judah? And so the question is, have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt like you are being forced to wait on God? Have you ever felt like God was being silent? But it's to better understand the point I'm trying to get across this morning, and it's to better understand the prophet's weight here. That's like we have to look back at that's like in verse 3 of like what we read. And it's like when we see the word in verse 3 of appointed time, God says that this will come in the appointed time. That's like the original word that was used there is the Aramaic word, which is moed, which means the right time, or it's better defined as a divinely appointed time. God is actually saying here that I am going to judge Judah, but it's not until the time is right. Not until the time is perfect. God is going to judge on his time, not on Habakkuk's time. Because see, everything about God is perfect. Everything about God is divine. Even his timing. God does nothing by chance. There is no coincidences when it comes to God. And that's what's so hard for us to sometimes try to understand with our human minds. It's hard for us to understand God's perfect timing. Because if we are thinking with our human minds, we want things right here, right now. We want to be able to Google search our problem and get an answer within a second. But that's not how God works. God's ways are so much higher than our ways. God's thoughts are so much higher than our thoughts. And so we wait most times because God's timing is perfect. But the problem is God's perfect timing, that there usually does not fall into our timing. That there usually does not fall into the way we think things ought to play out. And so that we naturally get impatient. We start to get frustrated. But there is encouragement for us this morning that if you are going through a season of waiting, that if you are going through a season of that there's a silence. That's like if you are waiting on God this morning, or if down the road, really, when you do end up having to wait on God, and I promise you there will come a day when you will have to wait on God. Please know and please take assurance that you are actually in excellent company. You are actually walking in the shoes of some of the greatest names that there's in all of the Bible. It's like Moses. Moses wandered in the wilderness for 40 years before he reached the promised land. And it's like I actually heard a sermon by chance this morning that this sermon was on Moses and it was on waiting. And it's like I never thought about this. I never thought about this before this morning. But it's when Moses, he wandered in the wilderness for those 40 years with the Israelites after they left Egypt. That was not the first time that Moses was forced to wait. That was actually the second time that God forced him to wait. Because see, once Moses was still in Egypt, and as he was one of the leaders in Egypt, Moses got mad one day, and it's like he killed an Egyptian. It's like Moses fled into the desert, and he hid in the desert where he became a sheep farmer. Moses left the palace to become a sheep farmer. He spent right about 40 years as a sheep farmer in the desert. And so that there makes you wonder, why did he have to go through that first 40 years of wait? And so then be forced to go through a second 40 years of wait. But what that preacher was saying to us this morning was, how else would Moses be able to lead Israel through the wilderness for 40 years that if he wasn't trained in how to survive the wilderness, how to survive the desert? Moses had spent 40 years as a sheep farmer in the desert, learning how to find water, learning how to find shade, learning how to take care of the animals inside of a wilderness desert place. How else would he have known how to lead them through the wilderness for those 40 years that if he hadn't had been trained, if he hadn't already learned how to survive those kind of environments? He had to go through that first wait as a learning time so that he could be used by God through that second 40 years. It's like the Apostle Paul. After the Apostle Paul saw Jesus as a blinding light on the road to Damascus, Paul was told that, hey, Paul, you are now going to be a great prophet, a great preacher to the Gentiles. You are going to take my gospel into all of the world. And so did you realize that after that Damascus road road experience. It was 13 years before Paul preached his first sermon. He waited 13 years. He spent 13 years learning, 13 years worth of training himself, getting to the point, or God getting him to the point so that he could preach to the Gentiles. Jesus himself didn't start preaching that's until he was 30. This should teach us something about this concept of wait. Jesus himself did not preach his first sermon until he was 30 years old. It's like the Bible is full of stories of people having to wait. That there was just a few. And it's like most of the time we wait because when we walk in the will of God, we simply live by his timing and it's not our own. But there's something else about waiting. And this is something that I've learned through my own experiences. This is something that I've experienced through my own life. Is that while we wait, in these seasons of wait, in these seasons of what seems like silence, God will often give us these little victories or these little visions or these little reminders that our wait is from him. God reminds us that he hasn't forgotten about us. And so I've experienced this within my own life. But you see, every time I used to get frustrated with this whole preaching thing, every time I used to be like, this just ain't going to work out. I am frustrated. I am mad. Nothing is coming about. This is just a big waste of my time. God would give me little victories. God would give me these little reminders just to let me know that like, he has not forgotten about me yet. God would put certain people within my life that's like to confirm my call to preach to me. Or it's God would send a church out of the blue, just like randomly reaching out to me, want to come preach for them or to come speak at some type of engagement. All these small little things would just reinforce to me back. This here would get my focus back on my preaching. This would get my focus back on the big picture. This was God saying, you are still waiting, but I haven't forgot about you. Your time just is not yet, but it's coming. And say, truthfully, I am still waiting. I am still waiting for all of this to come fruition. But it's even with knowing all of this, waiting is still hard. It never gets any easy. None of us ever want to have to wait. We hate to wait. So if I can leave us with just one little practical piece of advice on if there's a waiting that like, we can take home this morning, just one little thing that like, we can use in our time to wait. And then the next time you find yourself waiting on God, and it's like instead of getting all anxious, and instead of getting frustrated with God, just simply call out to God, pray to God, and it's like say, God, what can I do to get to know you better while I'm waiting? What can I do to get to know you better while I sit here in this time of silence? Ask God to reveal himself to you. Ask God to give you a little victory, or ask God to give you a little glimpse of the light at the end of the tunnel. But simply ask him, how can I better get to know you through this season of waiting? It's like if we do that, our view of waiting will slowly start to change. But just don't be afraid to take your waiting to God. Don't be afraid to take your frustrations to God. Don't be afraid to take your questions to God. We just seen that the prophet Habakkuk did. He asked God, what's going on? What's taking you so long? Why does it look like you have forgotten me? But it's at the end of his story, at the end of the book of Habakkuk, we see that he was able to find peace. He was able to find joy within his waiting. His book ends with a song of praise. He was able to find peace in his waiting. So if we can try to find God in our waiting, ask God what we can do to to get to know you better while I am having to wait. Let us close in prayer.